The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. Charles Baudelaire, they tell you to look for shifty eyes. They say a liar can't maintain eye contact. That's a comfortable lie, a simple rule for a complex game. The truth is, a practiced deceiver will often lock eyes with you, holding your gaze a fraction too long, projecting sincerity with unnerving intensity. They know you're looking for the darting eyes, the averted gaze. It's the oldest trick in the book, and they're counting on you falling for it. We're not interested in the easy answers. We delve into the subtle tells, the micro-expressions that flicker across the face for milliseconds, the inconsistencies in their narrative, the subtle shifts in body language that betray the carefully constructed facade. We understand that deception is a strategy, a calculated move in the ongoing chess match of human interaction. To truly detect deception, you need to understand the psychology behind it, the motivations that drive it, and the techniques used to conceal it. You need to move beyond the simplistic myths and learn to read the unspoken language of manipulation. Forget the folklore. Start seeing the strategy. The psychology of deception is rooted in self-preservation, a primal instinct to protect oneself from perceived threats, whether physical, emotional, or social. Lying isn't always malicious. Often, it's a defense mechanism, a shield erected to avoid conflict, maintain social harmony, or preserve one's image. Understanding this fundamental motivation is the first step in decoding the complex web of deceit. People lie to avoid punishment, to gain an advantage, to protect others, or simply to avoid embarrassment. Each motivation manifests differently, influencing the liar's behavior and the subtle cues they inadvertently reveal. A lie told to protect someone will carry a different emotional weight than a lie told for personal gain, and that difference will be reflected in their micro-expressions, their vocal tone, and their body language. Consider the scenario of someone exaggerating their accomplishments to impress a potential employer. The motivation is clear: to enhance their perceived value and secure a better job. This desire to be seen in a favorable light can lead to subtle shifts in their demeanor, a heightened sense of anxiety, and a tendency to overcompensate with excessive detail. Conversely, someone lying to conceal an affair may exhibit signs of guilt, anxiety, and defensiveness, often manifesting as avoidance of certain topics or a reluctance to make eye contact. The key is to identify the underlying motivation and then observe how that motivation influences their behavior. Deception also involves a cognitive load, the mental effort required to maintain a false narrative. Truthful statements flow naturally, drawn from memory and experience. Lies, however, must be constructed, rehearsed, and constantly monitored to ensure consistency. This cognitive burden manifests in several ways. Liars may take longer to respond to questions, as they need time to formulate a plausible answer. They may also exhibit inconsistencies in their stories, forgetting details or contradicting themselves under pressure. Furthermore, the mental effort required to maintain the lie can lead to increased blinking, fidgeting, and other nervous behaviors. The act of deception requires the brain to work harder, suppressing the truth and constructing a fabricated reality. This heightened cognitive load creates observable stress signals that can be detected with careful observation. A skilled interrogator can exploit this cognitive load by asking unexpected questions, probing for inconsistencies, and creating a stressful environment that forces the liar to expend even more mental energy. This increased pressure can eventually lead to a breakdown in the fabricated narrative, revealing the underlying truth. Furthermore, the psychology of deception is deeply intertwined with the concept of emotional intelligence. A skilled deceiver possesses a keen understanding of human emotions and the ability to manipulate those emotions to their advantage. They can read people's reactions, anticipate their questions, and tailor their lies to be as believable as possible. They understand the power of empathy and use it to build rapport, gaining the trust of their target and making them more susceptible to deception. Conversely, someone with low emotional intelligence may struggle to detect deception, as they are less attuned to the subtle cues and emotional undertones that betray a lie. They may be easily manipulated by skilled deceivers who can exploit their lack of awareness. Developing your emotional intelligence is crucial for both detecting and defending against deception. By learning to recognize and understand your own emotions and the emotions of others, you can become more aware of the subtle cues that indicate dishonesty. You can also learn to build stronger relationships based on trust and authenticity, making you less vulnerable to manipulation. Finally, consider the role of confirmation bias in the perception of deception. People often tend to seek out information that confirms their existing beliefs, even if that information is inaccurate or misleading. This bias can lead to the misinterpretation of cues and the false accusation of innocent individuals. If you already suspect someone of lying, you may be more likely to interpret their behavior as deceptive, even if there is no concrete evidence to support your suspicion. Conversely, if you trust someone implicitly, you may be less likely to question their statements, even if they are obviously false. Overcoming confirmation bias requires a conscious effort to be objective and unbiased in your assessment of people's behavior. It means being willing to challenge your own assumptions and consider alternative explanations for their actions. It also means being aware of your own emotional biases and how they might be influencing your perception. The human mind is wired to seek patterns and make judgments quickly, but these shortcuts can often lead to errors in judgment, particularly when it comes to detecting deception. A truly skilled observer must be able to override these automatic biases and approach each situation with a critical and objective mindset. They must be willing to question everything and trust only the verifiable evidence. Imagine a seemingly innocuous scenario, a business meeting. The air is thick with ambition, veiled by forced smiles and polite conversation. The topic at hand is a potential merger, a deal that could reshape the landscape of the industry. Seated around the mahogany table are the key players: the seasoned CEO of the acquiring company, his sharp-eyed CFO, and the founder of the smaller, targeted firm, a man who built his company from the ground up. This is not merely a negotiation. It's a carefully orchestrated dance of power, where every word, every gesture is a calculated move in a high-stakes game of deception. The CEO opens with a generous offer, praising the founder's innovation and vision. His words drip with sincerity, yet beneath the surface lies a ruthless calculation. He knows the founder is emotionally attached to his company, viewing it as his legacy, his life's work. This sentimentality is his weakness, a vulnerability to be exploited. As the meeting progresses, the CEO subtly shifts his tactics. He introduces veiled threats, hinting at potential market instability and the founder's dwindling options. He frames the merger as a benevolent act, a lifeline thrown to a sinking ship. His voice remains calm and measured, but his eyes betray a glint of predatory intent. The CFO, meanwhile, plays the role of the pragmatist, presenting meticulously crafted financial projections that paint a dire picture of the founder's company's future. He uses complex jargon and data visualizations to overwhelm the founder, hoping to create a sense of helplessness and inevitability. The founder, initially confident and assertive, begins to waver. The pressure mounts, amplified by the subtle nonverbal cues of the CEO and CFO. A raised eyebrow here, a dismissive glance there, these seemingly insignificant gestures chip away at his resolve. He feels isolated, trapped in a room with two seasoned predators who are intent on stripping him of his creation. The key to the deception lies in the manipulation of the founder's emotions and the distortion of reality. The CEO and CFO create a false narrative, painting a picture of impending doom that justifies their lowball offer. They exploit the founder's fears and insecurities, preying on his desire to protect his legacy. They use a combination of flattery, threats, and misinformation to break down his resistance and force him to accept a deal that is far below the true value of his company. The founder, blinded by his own emotional investment and overwhelmed by the perceived inevitability of the situation, ultimately succumbs to the pressure. He signs the agreement, sealing the fate of his company and his own financial future. In the aftermath, he is left with a bitter taste of regret, realizing that he has been skillfully manipulated and deceived. This scenario highlights the insidious nature of deception in high-stakes environments. It demonstrates how skilled manipulators can exploit vulnerabilities, distort reality, and prey on emotions to achieve their objectives. The ability to detect these subtle cues and understand the underlying power dynamics is crucial for protecting oneself from being taken advantage of in similar situations. It requires a keen awareness of the tactics of deception, the ability to recognize emotional manipulation, and the willingness to challenge false narratives. The founder's failure stems from a fundamental misunderstanding of the game being played. He enters the negotiation believing it to be a rational discussion about the value of his company, a logical exchange of information leading to a fair agreement. This naive assumption blinds him to the subtle cues of deception, the manipulative tactics employed by the CEO and CFO. He fails to recognize that the negotiation is not about objective value, but about psychological dominance. He allows his emotions to cloud his judgment, becoming a pawn in their carefully orchestrated game. His desire for validation, his fear of failure, and his attachment to his creation are all expertly exploited. He clings to the hope that they see the same potential in his company that he does, a hope that is deliberately fueled and then dashed to further weaken his resolve. The trap is sprung the moment he prioritizes emotional comfort over strategic awareness. He seeks reassurance instead of scrutinizing their motives, accepting their narrative without questioning its validity. He becomes reactive, responding to their carefully crafted stimuli instead of dictating the terms of the interaction. He relinquishes control of the frame, allowing them to define the reality of the situation and dictate the flow of the conversation. He becomes predictable, his emotional responses easily anticipated and manipulated. His vulnerability becomes his downfall. The predators circle, sensing his weakness, tightening the noose with each carefully chosen word and gesture. They isolate him, creating a sense of urgency and scarcity, convincing him that this is his only chance, his last opportunity to salvage something from the impending disaster. He loses sight of the true value of his company, focusing instead on the immediate threat, the fear of losing everything. This narrowed focus makes him even more susceptible to their manipulation, blinding him to alternative options and potential allies. He is trapped in a self-reinforcing cycle of fear and doubt, his ability to think clearly and strategically completely compromised. The weak fail because they underestimate the power of deception, believing that honesty and good faith are the default assumptions in every interaction. They fail to recognize that some individuals operate from a position of calculated self-interest, willing to exploit any vulnerability to achieve their goals. They fail to understand that every conversation is a potential battleground, a contest of wills where the strongest frame prevails. They enter the arena unprepared, unarmed, and unaware of the rules of engagement. They are lambs led to the slaughter, their naivety paving the way for their own destruction. They allow themselves to be defined by the narratives of others, accepting their version of reality without question. They surrender their power, their agency, and their future to those who are more skilled at the game of deception. This is the ultimate trap, the failure to recognize that you are even in a trap in the first place. It is a blindness born of naivety, a vulnerability that can be exploited by anyone with the knowledge and the will to do so. Avoiding this trap requires a constant state of vigilance, a willingness to question everything, and a deep understanding of the tactics of deception. It requires the ability to see through the masks that people wear, to recognize the underlying motivations driving their actions, and to maintain control of your own emotions and your own reality. To truly master the art of deception detection, one must adopt a strategic, almost Machiavellian, approach. This doesn't necessarily mean becoming a deceitful individual yourself, but rather understanding the mindset and tactics employed by those who are. It requires developing a certain degree of emotional detachment, the ability to observe human behavior with clinical precision, stripping away the veneer of social niceties to reveal the underlying power dynamics at play. Think of it as learning to dissect a complex mechanism, understanding how each component functions and how they interact to achieve a specific outcome. In this case, the mechanism is human interaction, and the outcome is often the exertion of control or the manipulation of perception. The Machiavellian strategist approaches every interaction as a chess match, carefully considering each move and anticipating the opponent's response. They understand that information is a valuable commodity, to be both guarded and acquired whenever possible. They are masters of observation, attuned to subtle cues in body language, tone of voice, and word choice that can betray a person's true intentions. They are also adept at creating controlled scenarios, probing for weaknesses and testing the boundaries of deception. This approach necessitates a thorough understanding of human psychology, particularly the cognitive biases and emotional vulnerabilities that can be exploited. Recognizing the common tactics used to manipulate others, such as gaslighting, projection, and guilt tripping, is essential for deflecting these attempts and maintaining control of the interaction. A key element of the Machiavellian strategy is the cultivation of a calm and composed demeanor, regardless of the situation. Emotional reactivity is a sign of weakness, a vulnerability that can be easily exploited by a skilled manipulator. Maintaining a neutral expression, controlling your tone of voice, and avoiding impulsive reactions are all crucial for preserving your power and preventing the other person from gaining an advantage. This requires a high degree of self-awareness, the ability to recognize your own emotional triggers and to manage your responses accordingly. Furthermore, the Machiavellian approach emphasizes the importance of building a strong network of allies and cultivating relationships based on mutual benefit. Having individuals who are loyal and trustworthy can provide valuable support and insights, helping you to navigate complex social situations and detect potential threats. However, it is equally important to be discerning in your choice of allies, avoiding those who are opportunistic or prone to betrayal. Trust is a valuable commodity, and it should be earned, not freely given. The Machiavellian strategist understands that deception is often a necessary tool for survival in a competitive world. While they may not necessarily endorse the use of deception in all situations, they recognize that it is a reality that must be understood and prepared for. By studying the tactics of deception, they can better protect themselves from being manipulated and maintain control of their own destiny. This approach is not about becoming ruthless or amoral, but rather about developing a clear-eyed understanding of human nature and the dynamics of power. It is about equipping yourself with the knowledge and skills necessary to navigate the complexities of social interaction and to achieve your goals without being exploited or deceived. It is about transforming yourself from a pawn into a player, capable of shaping your own reality and influencing the outcomes of the games you choose to participate in. Remember, knowledge is power, and the ability to detect deception is one of the most valuable assets you can possess. Master the art of observation, cultivate your emotional intelligence, and develop a strategic mindset. Only then can you truly navigate the treacherous landscape of human interaction and emerge victorious. By embracing a Machiavellian approach to deception detection, you can transform yourself from a victim into a victor, from a pawn into a player. This doesn't imply embracing malice, but understanding the shadows where it thrives. Consider the rise and fall of empires, the ebb and flow of warfare throughout history. Deception wasn't merely a footnote in these grand narratives. It was often the very foundation upon which victories were built and defeats suffered. Military strategists, from Sun Tzu to more contemporary figures, have consistently emphasized the critical role of misleading the enemy. A feigned retreat, a cleverly disguised ambush, a calculated misinformation campaign. These are not just isolated tactics, but integral components of a comprehensive strategy aimed at achieving a decisive advantage. The element of surprise, so crucial in warfare, is inherently linked to deception. It is the ability to create a false impression, to lull the opponent into a sense of security before unleashing the full force of your attack. Think of the Trojan horse, a symbol so potent that it continues to resonate across cultures and millennia. It wasn't brute force that breached the walls of Troy, but a carefully orchestrated deception, a gift presented with malicious intent hidden beneath a veneer of goodwill. This single act of calculated deception altered the course of history, demonstrating the immense power that can be wielded through manipulation and misdirection. The study of military history reveals countless instances where deception played a pivotal role in determining the outcome of battles and wars. From the ancient Greeks to the modern era, commanders have relied on deception to outwit their opponents, to gain a tactical edge, and to ultimately secure victory. The principles of deception employed in warfare can be directly applied to the realm of social interaction. Just as a military strategist seeks to mislead the enemy about their intentions and capabilities, individuals in social settings often engage in similar tactics to gain an advantage or to protect themselves. The ability to recognize these deceptive maneuvers is essential for navigating the complex landscape of human relationships and for avoiding being manipulated. It is about understanding the psychological principles that underlie deception and about developing the skills necessary to detect it in others. Imagine two armies facing each other across a battlefield. One army is larger, better equipped, and possesses superior resources. However, its commander is predictable, unimaginative, and lacks the ability to adapt to changing circumstances. The other army is smaller, weaker, and faces a significant disadvantage in terms of resources. However, its commander is a master of deception, a cunning strategist who understands how to exploit the weaknesses of the enemy. This commander uses a combination of feints, diversions, and misinformation to mislead the larger army, creating opportunities for attack and disrupting their plans. They spread rumors about their own strength, exaggerate their losses, and conceal their true intentions. They create false trails, set up ambushes, and use camouflage to hide their movements. As a result, the larger army is constantly reacting to false threats, wasting its resources and becoming increasingly demoralized. The smaller army, on the other hand, is able to conserve its strength, focus its attacks, and exploit the enemy's weaknesses. In the end, the smaller army emerges victorious, not because of its superior strength, but because of its superior ability to deceive and outwit its opponent. This scenario highlights the critical role that deception can play in warfare, even when facing a seemingly insurmountable disadvantage. It also illustrates the importance of understanding the psychological principles that underlie deception and of developing the skills necessary to detect it in others. Just as a military commander must be able to see through the enemy's deceptions, individuals in social settings must be able to recognize the manipulative tactics that others may be using to gain an advantage. By studying the art of deception, we can learn to protect ourselves from being exploited and to maintain control of our own destinies. Furthermore, the concept of strategic ambiguity is a cornerstone of both military and social deception. This involves deliberately crafting messages that are open to multiple interpretations, leaving the opponent or target uncertain about your true intentions. In a military context, this might involve making vague statements about troop movements or alliances, forcing the enemy to expend resources on intelligence gathering and analysis. In a social context, strategic ambiguity can be used to create uncertainty and doubt in the minds of others, making them more susceptible to influence. Think of a politician who carefully avoids taking a definitive stance on a controversial issue, instead offering vague pronouncements that can be interpreted in different ways depending on the audience. This allows them to appeal to a wider range of voters without alienating any particular group. The same principle can be applied in business negotiations, where a skilled negotiator might deliberately withhold information or make ambiguous statements to create uncertainty and gain leverage over the other party. The key to effective strategic ambiguity is to maintain control over the narrative, to shape the interpretation of your messages in a way that benefits your own interests. This requires a deep understanding of psychology, communication, and the art of persuasion. It also requires the ability to anticipate how others will interpret your words and actions, and to adjust your strategy accordingly. By mastering the art of strategic ambiguity, you can gain a significant advantage in both military and social situations. You can create uncertainty, sow doubt, and manipulate the perceptions of others, all while maintaining plausible deniability and protecting yourself from criticism or reprisal. Consider the intelligence agencies that operate in the shadows, gathering information and conducting covert operations. Deception is their stock in trade, their primary weapon in the ongoing battle for national security. They use a variety of techniques, including disinformation, propaganda, and psychological warfare, to influence the behavior of foreign governments and populations. They create elaborate cover stories, plant false evidence, and manipulate the media to shape public opinion. The goal is to create a distorted picture of reality, to mislead the enemy about their intentions and capabilities. These tactics are not always ethical, and they often involve sacrificing innocent lives. However, intelligence agencies argue that they are necessary to protect their nation from harm. They believe that the ends justify the means, even if it means resorting to deception and manipulation. The study of intelligence operations provides valuable insights into the art of deception. It reveals the lengths to which individuals and organizations will go to achieve their goals and the sophisticated techniques they employ to deceive others. By understanding these tactics, we can better protect ourselves from being manipulated and to make informed decisions about the information we consume. It is about developing a critical mindset, about questioning everything, and about refusing to accept information at face value. It is about recognizing that deception is a pervasive force in the world and about developing the skills necessary to navigate it effectively. It's about understanding that information itself can be a weapon and that those who control the flow of information wield immense power. Just as a military commander must be able to discern the enemy's true intentions from their deceptive maneuvers, individuals in the modern world must be able to navigate the complex landscape of information and to distinguish truth from falsehood. This requires a combination of critical thinking skills, media literacy, and a healthy dose of skepticism. Therefore, examining the historical parallels between warfare and social interaction reveals that deception is not merely an aberrant behavior, but a fundamental aspect of human nature and a recurring theme throughout history. The tactics and strategies employed by military commanders and intelligence agencies are often mirrored in the everyday interactions of individuals and organizations. By studying these historical examples, we can gain a deeper understanding of the dynamics of deception and develop the skills necessary to protect ourselves from being manipulated. It is about recognizing that every conversation is a potential chess match, and that the ability to detect deception is a crucial advantage in navigating the complexities of social life. It is about understanding the psychology of manipulation, the art of persuasion, and the power of information. By embracing a Machiavellian approach to deception detection, we can transform ourselves from passive victims into active players, capable of shaping our own realities and achieving our goals without being exploited or deceived. The lessons learned from the battlefields of history are directly applicable to the social battlegrounds of today. The ability to read micro-expressions, to detect inconsistencies in speech, and to recognize manipulative tactics are all skills that can be honed through study and practice. Just as a skilled warrior trains for combat, we must train ourselves to recognize and resist deception. This is not about becoming paranoid or cynical, but about developing a healthy skepticism and a critical mindset. It is about empowering ourselves with the knowledge and skills necessary to navigate the treacherous landscape of human interaction and to emerge victorious, not through malice, but through awareness. Deception is not merely a tool of spies and con artists. It is woven into the fabric of human communication. Understanding the psychology of deception requires a deep dive into the cognitive processes that underpin both the act of lying and the ability to detect it. At its core, deception is a form of communication designed to mislead, and it relies on exploiting the inherent trust that exists between individuals. Human beings are naturally inclined to believe what they are told, and this trust is essential for social cohesion. However, this inherent trust also makes us vulnerable to deception. The act of lying is surprisingly complex from a cognitive perspective. It requires the liar to suppress the truth, construct a false narrative, and manage their behavior to appear credible. This cognitive load is significantly higher than telling the truth, and it is this increased effort that often gives liars away. Microexpressions, subtle changes in body language, and inconsistencies in speech patterns are all indicators of this cognitive strain. These cues are often unconscious and difficult to control, making them valuable tools for deception detection. Moreover, the motivation behind deception plays a crucial role in its success. Liars who are highly motivated to deceive are often better at controlling their behavior and minimizing these telltale signs. However, even the most skilled liars can be caught out by a keen observer who is attuned to these subtle cues. The psychology of deception also involves understanding the motivations and biases of the person being deceived. Our own beliefs, expectations, and desires can influence how we perceive information, making us more or less susceptible to deception. For example, if we want to believe something, we are more likely to accept it as true, even if there is evidence to the contrary. This is known as confirmation bias, and it is a powerful tool in the hands of a skilled deceiver. Furthermore, emotional intelligence plays a critical role in both deception and deception detection. Liars who are skilled at reading emotions are better able to tailor their lies to their audience, while individuals who are emotionally intelligent are better able to detect subtle emotional cues that indicate deception. This is why psychopaths, who often lack empathy but possess a keen understanding of human emotions, are often adept at deception. They can manipulate others without feeling remorse, making them particularly dangerous. The effectiveness of deception also depends on the context in which it occurs. In situations where there is a high degree of trust, deception is more likely to be successful. Conversely, in situations where there is a high degree of skepticism, deception is more likely to be detected. This is why it is important to be aware of the social context in which communication occurs and to adjust our level of skepticism accordingly. Deception detection is not an exact science, and there is no foolproof way to tell when someone is lying. However, by understanding the psychology of deception and by paying attention to subtle cues in behavior, we can significantly improve our ability to detect lies. This involves developing a critical mindset, questioning assumptions, and being aware of our own biases. It also involves honing our emotional intelligence and learning to read microexpressions and other nonverbal cues. Ultimately, the ability to detect deception is a valuable skill in navigating the complexities of human interaction. It allows us to protect ourselves from being manipulated, to make more informed decisions, and to build stronger relationships based on trust and honesty. It requires constant vigilance and a willingness to challenge our own assumptions, but the rewards are well worth the effort. It's about recognizing that trust, while fundamental to society, should also be tempered with a healthy dose of skepticism and a commitment to critical thinking. Imagine a scenario. A seemingly successful entrepreneur, let's call him Mark, is seeking investment for his latest venture. He presents a compelling vision, filled with impressive projections and testimonials from satisfied clients. Investors, drawn in by the potential for high returns, start to line up. Mark exudes confidence, maintaining strong eye contact and speaking passionately about his company's mission and future prospects. He skillfully deflects difficult questions, pivoting to broader discussions about market trends and innovative technologies. He paints a picture of guaranteed success, subtly implying that those who don't invest will miss out on a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. However, beneath the surface of this carefully constructed facade lies a web of deception. The testimonials are fabricated, the financial projections are wildly optimistic, and the market research is cherry-picked to support his narrative. Mark's charisma and persuasive skills are weapons, deployed to manipulate investors into parting with their money. He understands that people are more likely to believe someone they like and trust, so he cultivates an image of competence and integrity. He leverages social proof, highlighting the investments already secured from other prominent figures, creating a bandwagon effect. He also uses time pressure, claiming that the investment window is closing soon, urging investors to make quick decisions without proper due diligence. As the money rolls in, Mark lives lavishly, further reinforcing the illusion of success. He knows that appearances matter, and he carefully curates his image to maintain credibility. He surrounds himself with influential people, attends exclusive events, and uses social media to project an image of wealth and success. However, the underlying business is failing, and the funds are being diverted to personal expenses. The truth eventually surfaces when investors start demanding returns and the company collapses under its own weight. Lawsuits ensue, exposing Mark's deception and leaving investors with significant losses. This scenario illustrates the devastating consequences of unchecked deception. It demonstrates how easily individuals can be manipulated by charismatic figures who exploit trust and leverage psychological vulnerabilities. It also underscores the importance of critical thinking, due diligence, and independent verification in making informed decisions. Mark's strategy was multifaceted, relying on a combination of verbal persuasion, nonverbal cues, and social manipulation. He created a false reality, carefully constructed to appeal to the desires and fears of his target audience. He understood that people are often swayed by emotions, and he exploited this vulnerability to gain their trust and confidence. The key to his success lay in his ability to control the narrative, shaping perceptions and suppressing dissenting voices. He used flattery, appealing to the egos of potential investors and making them feel special and valued. He also used fear, suggesting that they would regret missing out on this opportunity. He created a sense of urgency, pressuring them to make quick decisions without proper consideration. The consequences of Mark's deception extended beyond the financial losses suffered by investors. It also eroded trust in the business community and created a climate of skepticism. It serves as a reminder that appearances can be deceiving and that it is crucial to look beyond the surface to uncover the truth. The case of Mark highlights the importance of developing strong critical thinking skills and being aware of our own biases. It is essential to question assumptions, to seek out multiple perspectives, and to independently verify information before making decisions. It is also crucial to be wary of individuals who use manipulative tactics, such as flattery, fear, and time pressure. By understanding the psychology of deception and by developing our own defenses, we can protect ourselves from being victimized by fraudsters and manipulators. The ability to detect deception is not just a valuable skill in the business world. It is essential for navigating all aspects of life. It allows us to build stronger relationships, to make more informed decisions, and to protect ourselves from harm. It requires constant vigilance, a willingness to challenge our own assumptions, and a commitment to truth and honesty. It's about recognizing that while ambition and charisma can be alluring, they must always be tempered with scrutiny and a relentless pursuit of verifiable facts. The Mark scenario, though fictionalized, reflects real-world events and serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked trust and the pervasive nature of deception in human interactions. Deception, at its core, is a violation of trust, a calculated maneuver designed to exploit vulnerability. It thrives in the shadows of ambiguity, leveraging emotions and biases to distort reality. Understanding this fundamental principle is the first step in dismantling its power. The deceptive individual seeks to control your perception, to dictate the narrative, and to ultimately manipulate your actions. This control is not achieved through brute force, but through subtle manipulation of language, body language, and emotional appeals. They present a carefully constructed persona, a mask designed to elicit trust and admiration, while concealing their true intentions. Recognizing this constructed facade is crucial in seeing past the deception. It requires a constant questioning of motives, a relentless examination of inconsistencies, and a willingness to challenge the presented reality. The ability to detect deception isn't merely about identifying lies. It's about understanding the psychological drivers behind them. It's about recognizing the patterns of behavior, the subtle shifts in demeanor, and the carefully crafted narratives that are designed to mislead. It's about developing a sense of intuition, a gut feeling that something is amiss, and then having the courage to investigate further. But intuition alone is not enough. It must be coupled with a rigorous application of critical thinking skills. This includes questioning assumptions, seeking out alternative explanations, and verifying information independently. It means being skeptical of claims that seem too good to be true, and being wary of individuals who use high-pressure tactics or emotional appeals to sway your judgment. It also means understanding your own biases and vulnerabilities, and recognizing how these can be exploited by deceptive individuals. Everyone has blind spots, areas where they are more susceptible to manipulation. Identifying these weaknesses is essential in building a strong defense against deception. Furthermore, deception often involves creating a false sense of urgency or scarcity, pushing you to make decisions quickly without proper consideration. This tactic is designed to bypass your critical thinking processes and exploit your fear of missing out. By recognizing this tactic, you can slow down the decision-making process, gather more information, and make a more informed choice. The world is a complex landscape filled with individuals operating on varying levels of integrity. Some are genuinely honest, while others are masters of deception. Navigating this landscape requires a constant awareness, a willingness to question, and a commitment to truth. It's about recognizing that appearances can be deceiving, and that the truth often lies hidden beneath layers of manipulation and deceit. The ability to see through these layers is a skill that can be developed and honed over time. It requires practice, patience, and a willingness to learn from your mistakes. Each encounter with deception, whether successful or unsuccessful, provides an opportunity to refine your skills and strengthen your defenses. Remember, deception is a game of strategy, a chess match played with human emotions and perceptions. To win this game, you must understand the rules, anticipate your opponent,